1. Get into the mindset of your poem. For me, this means making some tea and putting on some moody music. I like to get into the mindset of my poem before I even pull out paper. I find that my work is much more focused this way. Tip 2. Figure out the layout of your poem. Because my poems are very visual and I take pictures, I try to keep a theme in mind the whole way through my writing process. This includes things like paper orientation, word spacing, breaks in sentence structure, etc. Sometimes I just feel it out and see where the words take me. So as you can see, I changed the poem quite a bit as I was writing, letting the words take me on a journey down the rabbit hole of my mind. Because my poems are so personal, I try to reach deep. There have been times where I've just written what's on my mind, and I find that it's not very poetic and it just seems like rambling, so that's just something to think about. Getting a feel for the mood and tone is a very important part of writing to me. I like to create atmosphere, so that's why I often choose to write my first draft by hand. In this case, things turned out very neatly, but often there are little notes and scribbles and arrows all over the place. Tip 3. Choose your presentation format accordingly. I chose to type my poem on my laptop and print them out so they are easier to read. However, I do recommend to anyone who has nice handwriting to keep your poems handwritten. I think that it adds a lot of personality to the poem and shows a connection to what was written. A lot of the poems I see online almost look robotic to me, and that everything is very clean and everything looks the same, which you could definitely say about my poems. But I try to keep a theme in mind while making each one unique. They may look similar, but they don't all look exactly the same. This is just a personal preference. Please do what you like and what looks good to you. I am a nobody whose opinion shouldn't matter. Tip 4. Create a look for your poem. The way I do this is I distress my poems. I have a 3-step process for doing this. So the first thing I like to do in all my poems is fill up this empty space with some doodles. This is just kind of a signature mark for me, and it kind of matches the visuals of the poem. They are not branches or bushes, so if anyone can guess correctly what they are supposed to be, I will give you a shout out on my Instagram and I'll pin your comment on this video. One thing to note is the kind of pen I use. I found these at the Dollar Tree and they are perfect for what I will be doing. I like them because they don't dry immediately, so if I want to, I can smudge them a little bit. Sometimes I do this with my doodles, other times I will highlight certain words or letters by tracing them lightly with this pen, or by adding little smudge marks at the end of something. I feel that it adds character and charm to the poem. The next step is aging the paper. I do this by taking a tea bag, wetting it with hot water, and using it as a sort of wash on the paper. In this case, I'm using this bagged tea I bought from the Dollar Tree. You don't need anything expensive because honestly it looks about the same. I also like this type of tea because of the smell it gives the paper. I think it adds just one more layer of enchantment. You can also make some really awesome splatters by squeezing the tea bag over the paper. You can also add some rings or even paint certain parts darker. I do things in layers, so the first layer is just to coat the whole page lightly. Then I use a hairdryer to blow dry the page. This makes it wrinkle a little bit, which adds to the distressing process. Then I will add little splatters and highlight other areas, and blow dry it once again. Back to the pen I use. When I paint over the pen with tea, it darkens and adds emphasis on certain words I had traced before. Again, I try to keep everything focused, and the words I emphasize are important to the overall idea. So I try to foreshadow things a little bit, but honestly, I think I overdo it sometimes, and it's way too obvious. The final step is to damage the paper. I like to use incense for this because it's really easy to control. Now, this can be super dangerous because you are lighting paper on fire, so make sure you have a cup of water next to you, and if you are a little mage, please do this with adult supervision. The cool thing about this is that every hole is fairly small, so I can make a cluster of small holes or I can expand it outwards to make something bigger. I can also leave a little burn mark without burning through the paper. I also like to rough up the edges and corners with this. Once this is done, I basically finish the poem. Then I will go ahead and set up a little photo op area and take some pictures. I use Afterlight to add effects to my pictures. I know this is a fairly common choice, but it's free and I like the effects it adds. The most important thing to take from all this is to keep your ideas focused and reach inside. For my poems, I have an underlying narrative to keep the ideas focused, but everything I'm writing comes from real thoughts and feelings I've had. Keep things genuine. If you use any of these tips, please take a picture of your project and share it with me on Instagram. I would love to see what you've done. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next full moon. And remember, keep your eyes open, for the whole world is full of magic. You just have to know where to look.